Yeah.
Welcome everybody to the Paws podcast. And Kevin, we got
Woo!
some news
Let's go, Willie Simmons.
Willie Simmons is the next head coach of FIU football, the 7th all time. Keep in mind, this is a very young program. 7th head coach all time for FIU. It's officially official. A ton of media sources have broken this out, including us. So, Kevin, just initial thoughts to Willie Simmons, an amazing tenure at the FCS level, at the HBCU level. Also has P4 experience with Duke. Even has experience with Middle Tennessee of Conference USA. Just talk a bit about the hire.
Yeah, I mean, couldn't have been a better one, honestly. I think it definitely came down to two candidates, to Willie Simmons and Tim Harris Jr. And I think, when it comes to experience and I mean, head coaching experience, Willie Simmons definitely takes the cake. And amazing hire. I mean, this is a slam dunk hire by Scott Carr. Willie Simmons has never had a record under 500 as a head coach at Prairie View A&M, I believe.
Yeah.
And Florida A&M, of course. His final year at Florida A&M went 12-1, winning the SWAC championship and also winning the Celebration Bowl. He is a two-time HBCU champ. He was the coach of the year at the SWAC. And you look at what he's done. I mean, the work speaks for itself. This guy has been from the bottom up. First ever time he will be a head coach at the FBS level. So can't be better than what it is, honestly. Love the hire. Willie Simmons, excited to meet him soon. Yeah, this is an A+ hire. Scott Carr killed it. He was interviewed back in 2022. That's worth noting.
Right.
So we'll see how he fills out the rest of the coaching staff. I wouldn't be shocked if we see maybe a Frank Ponce or Tim Harris join the staff, just given those guys are in their own limbo with their current staffs, with Sean Clark out at App State and Tim Harris and Gus Malzahn, out at UCF. So we'll see what happens over there. But look, we're talking about Willie Simmons today, and this is an amazing hire. I love it. FIU killed it. And now it's time to win some football games because this guy's a winner, and he is going to try to win right away.
So it was a bit interesting. I felt like the Willie Simmons hire ultimately came as kind of a curveball because if you look at the pattern of what we saw in these last 24 hours, it really felt like Tim Harris was going to be the guy. I mean, he followed, if you look at his history on Instagram and Twitter, for example, he followed a lot of FIU football players. He followed us, which was interesting. So I thought, okay, maybe this is a good sign that Harris is going to be the guy. As it turns out, that is not the case. We wish the best of luck for Harris, whoever he ends up being. But I think I agree with you, Kevin. I think the records and statistics, and oh, by the way, the Coach of the Year awards speak volumes about Simmons. I think that Florida A&M has been one of the better HBCU, let alone FCS squads there has been, and that's been a big thanks to Simmons. And now he gets to play in a market or coach in a market that has a lot of talent around it. And Kevin, of what you say is true, this guy is a damn good recruiter.
I mean, look, he knows the Florida area well. He's been around for a very long time. He was at Florida A&M for 6 years. And I'm sure that even at Duke, they were recruiting in Florida, given the ties that someone like a Manny Diaz over there had already had with with Florida. And so I wouldn't be shocked if he had recruited already in Florida, even this last couple of years. Now, I'm going to be interested to see if any players from Duke enter the transfer portal, maybe wanting to follow someone like a Willie Simmons, maybe a running back. But I mean, if you're Devontae Lyons right now, you got to be super excited for what could come. This guy's been a running backs coach for a very long time at many different levels. He was the running backs coach at Middle Tennessee. He was a running backs coach as well at Duke, and he was a damn good one. And he also was a high school coach here, by the way, in Florida. He was a pass game coordinator and I believe a quarterbacks coach. So I love this hire. I don't think I could express how happy I am with this hire. Scott Carr killed it, and it couldn't have been better.
Yeah, Scott Carr left us concerned for a little bit, Kevin. I'm not gonna lie. All this time with no announcement today, because we had a good feeling that this was going to be the day that the head coach was going to be announced. I will say, announcing the head coach after the early signing day is very interesting, but that's how things transpired. So just to clarify for you, Kevin, Tim Harris, you think was your number one, and then it'd be Simmons number two, or was the order flipped?
I had a pretty good feeling it was going to be Tim Harris. I originally thought early on it would be Simmons, and then just it was a little interesting everything you mentioned that he started following all these people on social media, and it ended up being Willie, and that's kind of where I was like, okay, this is going to be Tim Harris Jr. I mean, it only makes sense, former FIU offensive running backs coach. I'm sorry, he was never the offensive coordinator here, so it's okay, man. So I'm happy with the hire for sure. A little curveball, I didn't see it coming, but again, this is a great hire. Willie Simmons is a winner. He's won at every level he's been at, which is the biggest thing to consider. And he's going to have a chance to come back to Conference USA and get it going.
Now, one of the biggest things Simmons is going to have to take on early on, by the way, it's like what? It's 11:54. That's why the lighting in here is so crazy. That's how early we are. I don't know if we've ever done a broadcast this early, Kevin, but one of the biggest things he's going to have to take on early at his time here is how new this roster is likely going to look, Kevin. I know there was some speculation that like certain players would stay and go based on who would end up becoming the coach. How do you think that'll ultimately play out now that Simmons is the guy?
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. A player enters a transfer portal and you never know where they go. Maybe they withdraw. Obviously, that could be the case for right now, whoever does decide to come back. But yeah, I don't know. I really don't know how it'll play out. I think we would have had a better picture with other guys that's the head coach, but I'm not sure. So now it's just a matter of seeing, whenever we do get to talk to Willie and just straight up asking, are you going to try to retain guys who originally entered the portal or not? So that's definitely one of the biggest questions I'm going to have at least going into this press conference, whenever it is. So, yeah, I mean, again, I think he will be able to retain talent for sure. I think guys will want to come play for Willie Simmons. He's that type of guy. And
he's very young, by the way, right?
He is 44. I believe he's 44 years old. So this is
pretty young.
A very young head coach. Not the youngest that FIU's ever had. I believe Mario Cristobal was even younger. But
I think so.
Look, man, he's going to try to retain talent, and he's going to be a really good recruiter. I really hope he I really will be interested to see how he attacks the transfer portal. We saw how Mike McIntyre did it. I want to see how Willie Simmons does it. So I'm intrigued by that for sure. Now, last time I checked, no Duke player had entered the transfer portal, which was definitely interesting. They have a bowl game coming up.
Yeah.
So I'm sure we'll definitely get more names after that. And if there's a running back or two, you never know. Maybe they want to come play for Willie or even former players at Florida A&M. You never know. So we'll see what happens there.
They're going to have tough competition with Lions, and the running back room that FIU had, I guess a lot of them have entered the transfer portal. Lions,
yeah.
I'm interested to see how he'll handle Lions, as obviously being a big running back coach that he was. He was also the running back coach, I believe, at Middle Tennessee, which was how he first met, I believe, Manny Diaz when he was the DC over at Middle Tennessee. And obviously that carried forward to Duke. I don't think there was any connection between them when Diaz was the head coach at Miami for that stint. But still, Florida A&M, by the way, a really good FCS school. What he was able to do there was nothing short of spectacular. 2 trips to the HBCU championship game, a SWAC championship, and a spot in the Celebration Bowl in 2023, which ended up being his last year. He got the AFCA Region 3 Coach of the Year honors in 2022 and 2023. Also in 23, he was named the SWAC Coach of the Year. So experience alone, this was definitely the right guy for the job based on accolades. And I know that gets a big a view from a hiring aspect as to the accolades you've received because they're the best way of knowing that what you have done in previous tenures, and compared to Tim Harris, or I guess kind of Ray Lewis. By the way, that Ray Lewis thing ended up being like what, just a PR thing. It really feels like that's
not even. Yeah, it wasn't real.
It wasn't real. So just like with FAU, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, but if you bring in accolades, I feel like there was no better hire than Simmons.
Yeah, definitely. Look again, these other candidates like a Tim Harris Jr. and a Frank Ponce, for example, they had good backgrounds. Frank Ponce was a high school coach in Florida. My former high school, Corey Reef, he was at Miami Northwestern. He was at good high schools for the most part. And then he had some really good track records of what he did at Appalachian State. His first stint over there, literally never lost, really. I mean, never went under 500. I think only one season. They won the Sun Belt one of those seasons as well. And he had the experience at Louisville, the experience at Miami, and then went back to App State. And then with Harris, he's always been in Florida. I mean, FIU, UCF, then back to UCF. So every guy had their experience, and I think that definitely would have been good. I think had they hired a Harris or a Ponce, they would have been elite recruiters. And I think that's really what they would have kind of bought in on. But Willie Simmons, you're bringing him in as an elite, not just an elite recruiter, but as a guy who's going to win right away. He is going to win right away. So yeah.
Are you calling that, Kevin? All right. Well, you say winning right away. Does that mean we're going to a bowl game in his first year as a member of FIU?
I hope. But hey, man, you look. This is his first year again. It's going to be a new roster, nonetheless. No matter who they bring back, who they don't, because I'm sure it'll be a new staff. Yeah, we'll see what happens. I'm excited nonetheless. I think results are obviously something that they're going to look at in the first year. But if Willie Simmons wins 6 games, I mean, holy crap.
Holy crap. I'm very thankful that episode 75, as it turns out, held up very well as far as what we talked about potential head coaching hires and who we thought could and should be the new head coach. I'm very happy 75 actually turned out to be pretty valid for that specifically. So there's not a whole lot to say more, Kev. I know College Game Day gave FIU a shout out, talked about it. It's a 4-year deal, by the way, Kev. 4 years.
4 years. Yep. That I can confirm that it is a 4-year deal. Although there's not much more confirming it to do with Pete Thamel.
Yeah, I'm guessing we still don't know the Moolah situation. With
we'll
Simmons.
Find that out at some point, I'm sure.
Some point we'll probably get the info. But let's see here. Alex Shaw, hi Alex, said first job, bring back some of those players on the portal. I agree. If you can somehow snag back Jenkins, that would be amazing. However, I think Jenkins is getting offers from, what was it, Kevin? Louisville and
Houston.
That's going to be a tough ask. Freeway Dread said Florida legend for sure. Yeah, he's really well known around these parts, especially up in North Florida around the Tallahassee region, which obviously was where Florida A&M is. So that's it. And then Bryce Duval, football is so incredibly back. I agree, Bryce.
Yeah.
So, by the way, someone from Kennesaw commented that he would have been a good choice for Kennesaw State as well.
Of course, yeah. I mean, look, Tallahassee's very close to Georgia. So
yeah, it's like right there. It's like near the border, you know. So
exactly, yeah. So he has ties up there in Florida A&M, and that would have definitely been a nice little hire. But now it's just a matter of trying to find those coaching trees that Simmons has been a part of and see who would be a potential OC, DC, and we'll see who he retains on the staff. I definitely think there are guys that are deserving of to be retained, like an Anthony Gator or Joshua Ergel, even a Jovan DeWitt. Now it's just a matter of who will they actually retain.
Do you think people like Ponce and Harris might also be, well, they obviously didn't get the job at FIU. Maybe they'll settle for something else here at FIU in the meantime?
Look, again, I mentioned this at the top, that those are two guys that are kind of in limbo right now because Sean Clark is out at App State and Gus Malzahn's out at UCF. So those are two guys who are probably going to have to be looking for a new job regardless, unless the new head coach wants to retain them. So I would love to see someone like a Frank Ponce or a Tim Harris Jr. come and be the OC or even a quarterback's coach here. But again, we're just going to have to wait and see what happens. And I mean, again, you bring in Ponce as an OC or even Tim Harris, that would be a splash hire, and that would be pretty fun to watch.
Dayton Montiel, shout out Dayton, says between Tim Harris, Willie, and Dewitt, there was no miss here. I do agree. However, I do it. I think Dewitt would have been a decent head coach. I feel like I prefer him as the DC, especially because of what we've seen from the defense this season, how it grew so much at times. But yeah, I think all of those guys would have been good head coaches, but I think they ultimately got the best coach for this scenario that FIU is going through, where they're going to need to rebuild their roster. They're competing in a conference, by the way, that every other team in Conference USA is going to look probably completely different next season. I mean, you have teams like Findlay leaving Western Kentucky. You have Salter leaving Liberty. You have a bunch of new head coaches alongside Tim Harris. And obviously you bring in two new teams such as Delaware and Missouri State. So, I mean, I like the hire, Kevin. If FIU can go in and beat Penn State, no, okay. I'm just
think about it. Willie's gonna have a tough non-con. He has to go play an FCS team to begin the season. Then you have Penn State. I believe then you have FAU in the Shula Bowl. It'll be a new Shula Bowl with
new coaches for both sides of the success.
Yeah, exactly. And then you have to go play UConn. So it's gonna be a tough non-con. And then obviously you mentioned it, Delaware and Missouri State coming into the conference. You're gonna have to possibly play Jack State, maybe Liberty. I'm assuming FIU will go to Western Kentucky if I had to guess.
Yeah.
So
it'll be tough. Simmons, HC, Harris, OC. That'd be crazy. And then keeping Gator on the staff, recruiting would be insane. I think the recruiting would be pretty damn sweet if that were the case. That's a perfect world situation, though. Let's be a little realistic here. So what other moves do you realistically see as far as, OC, DC, other members of the coaching staff? Who's staying, who's not at this point, Kev?
I can't tell you, honestly. I would assume right now it'll be a completely new staff. I think we'll get more clarity when we talk to Willie on what exactly he wants to do. Maybe if Scott Carr will have some sort of input on what he wants to do. But again, I think right now what fans, if you really want to, is go through Willie Simmons' coaching trees, see who potentially would fit where, and I mean, you got to start looking at Florida A&M.
Yeah. Regardless, it's going to be one hell of a season next year at Pitbull Stadium. When do you think the presser, the opening presser for Simmons will be? There was we thought this was going to happen like 24, 48 hours ago. Now it's kind of up in limbo as to where we'll first actually hear from Simmons. I'm guessing later this day, FIU will actually post something officially. We might even hear something from Simmons on social media, but I can't wait for that opening presser.
Yeah, whenever it is, I can't wait. I really can't wait.
The Mike McIntyre presser was at the GC. It was at the cage, or what is it?
Like the little cage.
The pit. Yeah. It was at the pit to start in front of that giant screen and whatnot. Then it transitioned over to a private,
like a conference hall.
Yeah, like a conference room / classroom right next to it in GC. I think it's the doors are like right in front of Pollo Tropical. That's where it is location wise, like across from the Pollo Tropical. That's where they had like the media thing where media got to ask coach stuff. I was there. Johnny was there, I think. Yeah.
So this will be my first.
Yeah, this is what this will be your first, Kevin. I tell you, it was very exciting. It was especially exciting then because you had the Scott Carr and Mike McIntyre pressers pretty much around the same time. So that was a wild chance. Now I think, Scott Carr. I think this is a good hire. So shout out Scott.
We'll get him on soon for sure.
I'm really interested to see when this all began and when it was ultimately 100% this guy is our guy. There's no doubt about it. I'm really interested to see when that all began and when that conversation was basically over. So I think that's pretty much it, Kevin. Episode 76 should be sometime next week. Want to keep it basketball themed, but definitely we got to get Simmons on in the future. I'm just saying, Simmons, if you're watching this, hit us up or we'll hit you up, and we got to get you on the show, man. Got to hear from your perspective. And any final thoughts about the hire, Kev?
No, just excited to talk to him in person, get to meet him. Obviously, I think forming a relationship with the coach early on is definitely huge, and I think we had that with Coach Mack, and I hope we can get that with Willie Simmons.
By the way, I know you watched the CUSA championship game last night, Kev. Jacksonville State.
That team is a wagon.
It's a wagon. But they said Huff is probably leaving now?
I think he's a senior. I think he's done after this year.
Okay. Well, yeah. Well, I don't know. But still, that Huff and Edwards or Stewart combo, it's pretty nutty over there at Jack State. Western really did not have a single chance that whole game. And Western's a good team. And we're going to see them in Boca Raton in like, a week or two? The Boca Raton Bowl, Western versus James Madison. That'll be fun, Kev.
Yep.
So we'll leave you guys there. I dropped a recap I dropped an article about Coach Simmons on the Paws Up page. So check that out if you want a bit more info about him. Obviously, we posted a lot of stuff. And as more stuff drops today, either from us or FIU football or something like that, we'll keep you guys informed. But until then, have a great rest of the day. Go watch some college football. There's a lot of good games on today. And Paws Up.
No, baby.